Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to swiftly hand over to Rory. I know he's got a lot in store, whilst I keep an eye on the lobby here because people are continuously joining. We've just had a chat about comments and chat. If the chat box is probably the easiest way for people to ask questions or share their thoughts. And over to you, Rory.
Lovely. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. In fact, what I will do is I asked ChatGPT to write me an intro to this session. So I'm actually going to read it out to you. It's so much more exciting than anything I could come up with. So, it was really exciting to start with. So I'll tell you that in a minute. It says, welcome to today's insightful webinar. We will explore the practical and powerful combination of ChatGPT and the Microsoft Power Platform. We're here to guide you through the process of integrating ChatGPT into your workflows, enhancing your automation and capabilities, and improving your overall user experience. Join us as we dive into the world of AI-driven insights and learn how to harness the potential of ChatGPT to make better informed decisions and streamline your business processes. We look forward to sharing this knowledge with you and helping you unlock new opportunities within the Power Platform. Now, that is what actually ChatGPT came up with when I just asked it to do a bit of an intro. And I think it's quite fun to do these things. I've just lost my screen, by the way. Okay, good. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to get straight into this. Let me do that. Wonderful. Okay, so where were we then? We were on. Oh, well, that's wonderful because I actually just lost the intro. I'm just going to do a bit of a refresh on this, and let's just see what it comes up with. Yeah, so we can see I actually did the initial intro. And I used the model GPT 3.5. I also used the one which was the one I read out to you, which was using ChatGPT 4, which actually was released yesterday. So the first one was said, write me a snappy intro to a webinar in which I show how to use ChatGPT with the Microsoft Power Platform. And it came to this crazy, it was just so excited. It was just too much. It was even too much for Sarah. I didn't want her to be this excited on a Wednesday afternoon with a further 2 days to go. So what I then did, it said, welcome trailblazers and tech enthusiasts and so on and so on and so on. And I then said, well, actually, this is a little bit exciting. Just tone it down a bit. And it came up with something else. Now, clearly, this is a bit made up and I didn't really provide it with much information, but it does give a bit of an idea of the sort of things that you can get ChatGPT to do. Now, this session is actually focused on the sorry, I'm just a bit spooked here. I've lost a few windows along the way. So yeah, this session is focused on the Microsoft Power Platform and how we can use it to make ourselves more effective within the Power Platform. And so I'm primarily going to be focusing on Power BI, Power Automate, and Power Apps. Now, I do need to get my screen sorted out again because they aren't quite ready for action. So let me just check what's going on here. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm just going to jump into my presentation. So I'm just going to do F11 and F5. Okay, good. And we just jump into here and we will crack through this. As Sarah was saying, if you have any questions, you can either put them in the chat, we can pick them up there, or you can raise your hand. But there's quite a few of us in the chat, so you may find that just popping something into the chat area is actually more effective. So ChatGPT 4 ? Does the Power Platform. So initially this was just ChatGPT, and with the advent of ChatGPT 4, which came out yesterday evening, we're now gonna see what we can do with 4. I'm just gonna bounce out this, change my settings and go onto here and jump back in again. Lovely. So welcome everyone. Thank you to Sarah Jones from Shortlist for inviting me to do this session. She asked me a few times to come onto the session. I wasn't sure if I I wasn't sure where it was coming from and so on, but she was persistent enough, which is a trait of a good recruiter, that she managed to persuade me to run a little session for yourselves, and I'm really excited to do that. So I am your presenter today. My name's Rory Neary. You can find me on Twitter at @AzureRory, and on LinkedIn you just type my name in, that'll be good enough. And you can see that I've got my various the various websites that you can get to below. I've actually got a little course that I'm going to refer you to at some point, because I've written a little tiny ChatGPT course just to give you some ideas about what you can do with it, not specifically in the context of the Power Platform. So I work at CPS, Corporate Project Solutions. We are a Microsoft house, and we sell our services to customers to enable them to be more effective using the Microsoft stack. Robin up on screen here is because he did actually do a presentation with me at one point, but he also wrote this really cool connector that you can use really easily, and I use a couple of times. I'll try my best to show you the different ways in which I've used this little connector that Robin helped set up. He said it didn't take him very long, actually, so he might be on the call, he might not. He did say he might join, but thank you to Robin for all your hard work on that, because it's made a big difference to me being able to use this using ChatGPT and OpenAI with the Power Platform. If you want to join the LinkedIn group that I set up, so if I just go onto here and I just pop on LinkedIn, I think I put it into our chat, Sarah. So you might want to pop that into the group. I'm just going to show you the group that I set up. It's just a group of us for us to kind of geek out about ChatGPT and the Power Platform. Maybe you found something really cool that you think's interesting, and you might want to sort of post it in there. So by all means, do join us in this group if you find you may find that useful. So back onto the presentation. Yeah, so Sarah, if you pop that link in there. Brilliant. So yeah, I'd be very happy to have you in there. Now we've also I was mentioning the course at powerplatformlearn.academy. So powerplatformlearn.academy, and I've written a little course here about how to use ChatGPT. It was just an idea that I thought that, you know, it'd be nice for people to know how to get it, fun ways to use it. I thought it was quite nice to do some fun ways to use ChatGPT before we then start to get into something a bit more heavy. I don't know if anyone's actually written a poem in ChatGPT that is really, really funny. So what you can do is you can do things like, right, okay, let me do new chat. So write a poem in the style of a pirate about the Microsoft Power Platform. And then make it a bit more difficult. Every line needs to start with the letter P. Let's see if it can do that. It's just quite funny when you pirates me be on digital seas, Power Platform our bounty I with great ease, and so on and so on and so on. Now, remember, we're talking about ChatGPT and we're looking about GPT-4. Now, I believe that if you ask the same question of the default, which is 3.5, you wouldn't get quite so robust an answer. So it didn't understand that every line needs to start with the letter P, as you can see. But the other thing you can see is it actually runs it a lot quicker, and that is a feature of this particular thing, that the GPT-4 takes a bit longer to do the things it does. But my goodness, it is pretty amazing when it gets going on it. So did it manage to get to the end of it? It looks like because I jumped off, it then sort of it didn't quite get to the end of it. But you can see already that there's a level of cleverness that exists within GPT-4 that doesn't exist in GPT 3.5, which I still love. I think it's still amazing. What do you think about that, Sarah? A nice little poem about the Power Platform with all of
actually, yeah.
It's quite funny, isn't it? Portals we build. 'Tis our grand canvas grand, painting solutions with a skillful hand. Power automate with our swift current flows, paving the way where the wind blows. I could just do the rest of the session on this, but sadly, I won't be able to because there's more to come on this. So the ChatGPT overview, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview of ChatGPT. I'm not going to pretend I'm the world's expert on it, but I just wanted to give you a little overview on ChatGPT. And then using ChatGPT with the Power Platform. So we're going to start to delve in a little bit further into this. I am conscious of time in this session, Sarah, because there's a lot of tech for us to get through. And then I've got this remembering the ways. So I've kind of got this mnemonic decades. So S is for search. And E is for exploration and also explanation. So I use this sort of mnemonic decades to allow me to remember all the different ways in which ChatGPT can help me to delve a bit further into what it can do. I'm sure there's more things that it can do, but decades is good enough for me. So then I'm going to roll into Power BI, and we're going to do some specific things in Power BI to show that Power BI is an effective tool within this platform. So we'll be able to use ChatGPT with Power BI in order to create a little bit of code and see if we can make some working DAX, for example. Then we have Power Automate. Power Automate is really neat. We can do Power Automate expressions using ChatGPT, but we can also use the API as well. And then finally, we have Power Apps, where we'll be able to see how we can use the connector again in order to build a Power App, a working Power App, where we're actually using the connector to get information effectively back from the ChatGPT OpenAI connector. Finally, a little bit on API usage. If we get to that, that'd be fantastic. We may get a bit of an understanding of that along the way in any case. But for now, I'm just going to see if Sarah, have we got any questions at this point?
There's nothing in the chat right now.
Fantastic. So I will jump out of here and I am going to jump into this ChatGPT overview. So we'll jump in there. Who built ChatGPT? It's been built by OpenAI, and Sam Altman is best known for it, but I know he's actually one of the co-founders of the product. If you're here today, there's a very good chance you know how to get it, because you just go to openai.com and just get yourself signed up for it, and then that will mean that you can go to the platform and then start making use of it. Do bear in mind that unless you've got the ChatGPT Plus, which I've been using, then you may find that there are times when you can't get into it because it's pretty popular at the moment. It is the world's fastest growing app of all time, which is kind of inevitable that, you know, we're all using apps very frequently nowadays, but it is still pretty cool that something that as of, you know, in the 3.5 version didn't do anything with images, that something could grow that fast. You know, in November 2022, it went, in 5 days, it got to 1 million users, which I think is just a bit of a proxy for how popular it is. ChatGPT Plus, that's what we'll be using today. Essentially, it means I can get into it and make use of it. Whereas if I wasn't using that, there's a very good chance that we wouldn't actually be able to run the session because I might not be able to get in. Microsoft and ChatGPT. So these two are very much in bed with each other. ChatGPT is going to be infused, and OpenAI is going to be infused in so many of the Microsoft products. So Microsoft have got a 49% ownership of OpenAI, as I understand it. They've put in billions of pounds of investment into OpenAI. And so the other thing to note with OpenAI, it's not just ChatGPT. It is the whole of the solution. And the other thing to note about it is it's not going to be the only AI solution this year. So Google Bard is the Google equivalent to ChatGPT, but it is noticeable that number one, it's not been released. And then number two, it ultimately, it's likely to affect their search business, because the nature of ChatGPT is that it's quite a bland screen. You get to the thing that you want to do really quickly and you get out, and there's no advertising and all that sort of stuff. What does ChatGPT look like if there's loads of advertising every few characters and so on? It's not going to be the same thing. So I think Google have a real challenge around getting their product, if you like, to market. Bear in mind, it's a very costly thing, and it's also, it damages their own search business. So a real challenge for them there. And 2023 is the year of AI. We are going to see so much AI this year, and who knows, it could be in 3 months' time we're talking about something even more revolutionary. I suspect we're kind of there at the moment. I was surprised just going from the original ChatGPT to GPT-4. I was surprised at how much that is, and I think that the more conversation you have with the platform, it actually enhances it even further. So it can remember, I think it's something like 64,000 characters or 64,000 words. So you can go back effectively about 50 pages of interaction with the user. And that was the issue that they had with ChatGPT, that eventually it just got a bit confused because of all the information it's been provided with. ChatGPT at home. I'm not even sure why I put this in, actually. I'm at home and I use ChatGPT. The point is, I guess, that you can use ChatGPT for a lot of things here. Good. So using ChatGPT with the Power Platform. Now this gets interesting. Now I'm going to talk about how we can use it with the Power Platform, and we're going to talk about it in the natural order in which I would expect to start using it. And so the first thing that we would do would be search for things. So if we were to sort of say, if we were to say something like, we'll do a new chat here, and then we'll do it on 3.5. We'll say, tell me about the Microsoft Power Platform. And I've done a deliberate error in there. In fact, platform, so it's quite badly spelled as well. But it's actually worked out. It did an assessment as to what it thought I might be talking about. Notice that it isn't actually complete, and the reason for that is that its data only goes back to 2021. So, for example, if you said, who is the Prime Minister of the UK, then you'll find it actually gets it wrong because its data only goes back so far. And so it actually thinks it's Boris Johnson, which is a pretty scary thought, if I'm honest. But yeah, as I say, it only goes back to September 2021. So it does mean that the sort of questions that you ask it should be kind of more generic. And you find that when people are asking about programming languages such as COBOL, that they find them very successful because they're actually really old languages. Whereas if you're trying to do something that's really current, then don't be surprised if you don't get the right results. So that sort of starts us off with search. We can jump in there and we can just ask some details. Exploration, that's very interesting because that's the second part of the search, is that you've had your search now, and and now I'm just going to change this one here, and I'm going to change this to be tell me more about Power BI in bullet form. Let me see, and I'll just do save and submit. So now I've now got some understanding, and I'm digging into it a little bit further. And what I might then do is perhaps talk about, well, you know, what are the Power BI AI capabilities of, you know, what are the AI capabilities of Power BI? What are the AI capabilities of Power? So it's now going to start to tell us about what it can do, but bear in mind it is limited to September 2021, so it may or may not get it absolutely right. But the point here is around the fact that we can actually explore things that little bit further. The next E is for explanation. So explanation is you found something out, and you know. And you might just want to know a little bit more detail. It's a little bit like a bit like exploration. I don't know. It could be like write me DAX expression to create a date table with, I don't know, say 4 years, something like that. So it's going to write me a DAX expression, and that would be, you know, a valid expression. Now, what we can actually do with it is we can, I think this is really cool. Weirdly enough, this actually got better since I first started using it, which is really strange. Now, what we could do with that is we could then sort of say, you know, particularly from a coding perspective, I could sort of say, please explain this on a line by line basis. Okay, so now what we're going to get is okay, not quite. It's not quite what I want. So I'm going to say stop generating, and I'm going to say please comment the code with explanations. Explanations, that'll do. Let's just see what it does. So now what we've got is a date table. Now, weirdly enough, it's actually forgotten. You can see I said 5 years before, and now it's kind of forgotten what's going on. But this is, I would say this has probably turned out to be a valid DAX expression. So I'm just going to pop up Power BI desktop if I possibly can. And what we could do with that is we could jump into there, we could click copy code, and we could pop that into Power BI, and we can actually then take a look at it. And it might be that we've actually got some expressions that other people have created that we don't understand, that we need to kind of delve a little bit further into. So that's E for explanation, which I find which is very interesting. Now, jumping back here, we have code generation. So it's a little bit, it's similar. In fact, I kind of did a bit of both at the same time. I did code generation and explanation. So quite often what you'll have is you may just want to generate code from scratch. I'm just going to see if I can find I'm just going to try and find a Power BI report that I'm just going to grab this Power BI report and see if I can do something useful with it. What I'll show you on here is, from a code generation perspective, you can do things like using Power BI, write a measure which shows last year's sales, something like that, something really bland, and it shouldn't really, you wouldn't think that it'd actually be able to do anything with this, because I haven't even told it what the model is or what any of the fields are. So what I'm going to do, so we can see it's a little bit slower. I know that this is slower than in GPT-3, and we'll try it in GPT-3 3.5 as well. So it's quite long, this thing is here, but what you find is the quality is very, very good that you get out of this. Now this is quite a simple formula, and what it's done is it said that in the sales table we have a revenue column, and we have a date period. In fact, I'm not sure if it's got this completely right. I have a date table called dim date. See what it does in that. So it didn't understand the nature of the table, the tables that we had, which was reasonable, and now it's looking inside the date table in order to get the correct formula for the sales for the prior year. And you can then just keep going on further, and you can say I have a product table and I only want to see blue items in the color field. Let's see how it gets on with that. Okay, it's doing it slightly different. I could have asked it to change the formulas and so on. I'm just getting a little bit into this anyway. So I am going to stop that one there and just jump back. And we are going to jump back into this and go there. So exploration, we've got code generation, API usage. So A is for API usage. Essentially, we are not, strictly speaking, using the API in this case. Under the hood, we probably are. But when I'm talking about using the API, I'm talking about creating a connector using the API in order for us to be able to build things within the Power Platform that allow us to create cool functionality. And you'll see that later on. So I'm not going to give an example of that right now, because we cover that in Power Automate and also in Power Apps. D is for data. I love data. It's so funny when you do this. So if you look at this one here, so I'm going to do a new chat, and I'll just do it on 3.5, and I'm going to say provide me a table of famous landmarks with lat and long and the, I don't know, nearest city. So I'll give that a go. So notice this is actually really quick. Now, if I grab this here and I do it on the GPT-4 and pop that in there, you'll notice it's actually quite a bit slower. And it's and they know it's slower, but it kind of does more. So just bear that in mind when you're maybe if you're critiquing it, and it's because you can have a much better conversation with this than you could with the other thing. But if you're just looking to bang out something, you know, that's okay, then using 3.5 is absolutely fine. So I'm going to jump on to this one here that it got partway through, and I think it's because I chopped it off at one point, and that's why it never got to the end. So what I'm going to do with this though is I'm kind of jumping ahead, but you can see that you can create data with this quite easily, and we do, you know, when I jump into the Power BI session, I will get this to. I'm just going to jump on there. I'll do save and submit, and I'll just do it again. But by the time we go back there, we'll actually have a more complete list. In fact, the issue with this thing here is I've got the latitude and longitude as decimals here, which isn't really that useful. I'm going to say provide lat and long as decimals. So here it goes this time round, whizzing through it at great speed, and it's going to give me the correct information from this. So jumping back here, so that we looked at data, and we can also think about documentation. I actually think documentation is a really great reason for using ChatGPT. So what I'm going to do is just jump onto here and go on to GPT-4 and then provide me a summary of the different visuals you can, no, in fact, I'll do provide me a summary of a range of functions in Power Automate. No, we'll do Power Apps. Organize them into sections with text, numeric, etc. So we'll see what it comes up with. I'm really looking for a list form on this, so let's see where it goes. Here's a summary of some. So it's just going to be a little intro into this. Text functions. Oh my goodness, that is so cool. That is amazing. Oh, that is just so cool. That's my next blog post. That is very, very clever. And in fact, if we actually look at this thing and we try it with, I'm having a great time looking at this on 3.5. Let's just try this. Don't need that. And I'll just chop you in. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Oh my goodness, that's amazing. So you can see they both did pretty good job, and one of them is quicker than the other, and it's the 3.5 that's gone, you know, at high speed. Very, very useful. Now it's not all of the functions, but I'm you know, it's done a pretty good job. I'm very impressed with that. So in terms of documentation, you can see that there is scope for you to be able to document things. It could be, you know, that you're looking at tell me about the admin center. Now this is very unfair because I've talked about Power Apps. It doesn't know. How does it know I'm talking about the Power Platform Admin Center? But I am. The Power Apps Admin Center, da-di-da-di-da-di-da, etc., etc. So it's worked out. It's in, you know, it's inferred that that's what I'm actually asking about. Good. So documentation, and that might be the last one. Does that spell decades? It does spell decades. And so that's where I came to with this idea of the decades things. Was I tried to think of a mnemonic which was useful. Now you're very fortunate I found a few more things, because my initial mnemonic was dead, DEADD, and I thought, oh no, I can't do that. I've got to think of a better one. So I came up with decades, which was the same thing, but oh, that's nice to know. Yeah, so it's the same letters actually. I should have actually put this in the right order. Let me just should do it. Yeah, data, explanation, code generation, API, documentation, exploration, and search. So decades. So if you want to kind of think of a, wow, what did he tell us about, you know, the other day? That's how we can do it. So now on to Power BI. So we're going to struggle on time, I think, on this. We've already seen that you can do explanations of DAX. We've seen that you can do, you can explain, we've seen that you can do documentation of things. So if we wanted to do a, if I just jump on here and I say, explain Power the Power BI service. So you can see you can see things here about what you can do in the Power BI service. It's not absolutely perfect. It's pretty good. I can see that there's things about security and compliance, which is pretty good here. But you could see that you'd be able to do some useful things there. You could talk about row level security and so on. This is a bit of a reminder. Power Query, you can do things like you can ask it to write a Power Query expression to return a set of dates from for 2 years. Say something like that. Honestly, I don't actually know if this is going to work, but I think for the purposes of the demo, we should actually give it a try. So I'm going to do that. We're going to go to, I'll do get data. I don't want to do that. I want to go to transform data. It'll pop up on the other screen. And go in there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to new source, blank query. If this works, I'll be very happy. And then paste that in there and then click done. And now that is pretty cool. I'm pretty impressed with that. I gave it hardly any, you know, if you asked me to do that, I would really struggle with it. But in the interest of time and getting through all of these products, I am just going to crack through this. So we can create DAX tables. I showed you before about how you can create a DAX table in there. You can create summarized tables as well. You can also create measures. We saw that you could create measures, and you can even write DAX fields that do, you know, special things. One of the things that is really neat on here is that you can actually ask it to think of a data model, where describe a data model for a library. Going away, I think it'll say, well, you've got these tables here, you've got a borrowers table, you've got a loans table, you've got a calendar table, etc., etc. Date dimension, how you'd use it. This is quite detailed, and all I did was ask it about a date dimension. A set of tables, a data model for a library, but you could have said, you could have asked me, give me a data model for a child facility. Let's see what it comes up with on that. So children table, guardians, okay, enrollments, attendance. Lots of really useful things here. So we can see that we can actually even create a data model there. So that's quite a nice thing. And now I'm rolling straight off this, and I'm going to dive directly into Power Automate. So Power Automate, yeah, this is really funny, actually. Let me show you this. So in fact, yeah, let's do this. So please return this as a JSON array. So it's returning this as a JSON array, and we can go into make dot. In fact, this probably won't work because it's been giving me a little bit of trouble recently. That's not too bad. And I'm not going to go into prod. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm just going to go on to my experiments. And you can go into your flows. But I mean, hopefully, I'm thinking in the interest of time, you can see that it actually got all the way to the bottom of that. You can see that it is actually valid JSON that's in here, and we could use that within a Power Automate. And in fact, the way in which I've used it in Power Automate is kind of similar to this. I actually ask it a question for a motivational quote, and then it creates a JSON array, and then I pass through the JSON array. So in terms of, let's just jump across to that. And we will go to, let's go to training. And then we go to my apps, and we'll go to this thing here. And I'll show you that there's a few things that I've used ChatGPT to create, and then this time round, we're now into that coding area, which sits really well with this. So this cloud flow that I have here, if I look at the motivational quote child flow, and actually look at some of the runs on that child flow, I actually ask it to return there's one that's run 3 hours ago. First of all, I ask the OpenAI connector, here's my prompt. So I say to it, create a valid JSON object with the following fields: quote, author, year, theme, ensure the syntax is bounded by double quotes, etc., etc. So essentially, I'm asking it to return me a JSON array, and that's exactly what it does. So if you actually look inside here, we pop up Notepad, jump in there, pop it on the screen. What it's not completely clear this is a JSON array, but it is. So all these funny ends you can ignore, but you can see the end of the JSON array there, and you can see the start of the JSON array here. So there's my JSON array. And so what happens with that is that in the context of this, the response get passed. So you can see this is my JSON array, looks lovely. And then it then gets, it's got respond to an app or a flow. It then gets used within the flow that actually calls it. So it's quite a nice way of creating data that wasn't there. And the way in which I use it is that I run a flow on a daily basis, and what it does is actually it writes it goes and finds a little quote for me. And so if I actually run it now, what it does is it finds the quote, and then what it'll do is it will send me an email with the quote, and it will also send me a text as well. So any second now I'll get a little ding on this, which I've just got, sent from your Twilio trial account. In fact, is that right? Wow. In fact, it says it's running, but I know it's finished. So if I actually have a look at this thing here, it says the greater danger for most of us lies not in setting our aim too high and falling short, but it's setting our own aim too low and achieving our mark. Okay, that was Michelangelo apparently, but this is the flow running. It's quite busy because I do lots of interesting things with it, but this is the element where I run the flow and get the data back out. So you can see it sort of running the flow there, and you can see it pulling the data out there, and you can see that information coming out in that area there. So any questions at this point?
I can't get the chat to work, unfortunately, so I just wanted to jump in. I've shared that page on my LinkedIn because I know a few people have asked for it, but it might be an idea to raise hands if anyone has any questions or
Absolutely,
comments.
Yeah. Hey, Peter.
Hey, Rory. Hey, Sarah. This is maybe a little bit too basic, so apologies if that is the case. This is all really impressive, and I've had a little bit of a play with ChatGPT and the Bing chatbot myself. And one query I have is any of this functionality available in different languages?
The GPT 3.5 is predominantly English. And I believe that GPT-4, which is the one that isn't readily available to everyone, is in, I think, 29 languages. So it's got a better sense of language as compared to the previous model. So I haven't tested it in any particular way. I mean, what you can do is you can translate anything from English to another language, and you can actually translate it the other way around as well. Yeah, I mean, so yes, you can do all this sort of thing, but it's predominantly English to something and something to English.
So you could kind of automate maybe a flow or something like that to kind of do the translation either side of the the chat.
Yeah,
GPT.
And you could probably get it to detect the language as well.
Cool. Yeah,
because obviously you might have both. Anyone else? Any other questions? Hey, Thomas.
Hey guys, hello.
Hi.
I have one question regarding these child flows. I don't know if I understood right that there is a place on LinkedIn where we can find it or not.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, I only started using child flows recently, and the reason I wanted to use a child flow is because I didn't want to have to keep writing flows in order to essentially do the same thing, which was basically ask ChatGPT for something. So essentially all that happens is if I go into the edit there, you build they have a particular structure where you this is me calling the child flow, which arguably is the easy bit. There's my run ChatGPT, and I run the ChatGPT child flow, and essentially this is my request. So this is fired into the child flow, and it's just run as a button flow. It just looks that you just run it as a flow, and then the slightly harder bit is actually to write the child flow. So this is the child flow here, but it's not so difficult to write. You know, they don't have very many steps, this particular child flow. What you do need to do is you have to have a manual trigger. So there's GPT request, and then you've got your input there, and you always have to make sure that you've got a response that comes out, because that's what goes back to your original flow. But I've been really pleasantly surprised at how easy it was to actually create them.
Yeah. So I'm familiar with the child flow concept, and that's okay. What I actually wanted to see is what steps you were using in the child flow. And
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Additional question will be regarding the second step. If you can please open it.
I'm just opening the child flow. Is that what you were looking for?
Exactly. Yes. And this GPT prompt preview steps, the second one. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Do you need a premium license for that? Is this a premium feature or not? Do you know?
That's a very good point, actually. I don't. Yeah. I think you probably do. But we've actually got Robin on the line, and Robin actually wrote this connector. So Robin can probably answer that one. Robin, have I got you there? Not quite. Okay, so
yeah, I tested this one is not required any premium connector. Just we need to allow in organization DLP policy so that you can use directly in our flow.
And I think I think for your purposes, this is probably this is very interesting. This this connection reference. Let me just jump into, I'll go into the Cloudflow, because this is where we just looking at time as well. I tell you what we should do is, with a view to getting onto Power Apps, I'd like to make sure we get onto Power Apps, and then we will pick up the piece on the connector at the end after the main part of the presentation. So let me just to give you a brief idea about how it works, I'm just going to go and edit new tab. This will bounce me out to Power Automate. And I just want to show you that all you need to do is go to data, connections. I'm going to click OK on that. And then I'm going to look for the OpenAI connector. So you go to new connection, and I'm going to search up here, OpenAI. And so there you then just select this. This is the one that Robin put together. And then you start filling this in. So you type in bearer and a space, and then you put your key in. And the place that you get that from is you need to go to OpenAI, and you need to get to, I think it's pretty well the billing overview type place. And you need to go to your API keys here. And once you're in your API keys, I know it doesn't actually show them. So I would need to, if I created a new secret key, it would pop it in like that. I would pick it up, and then I would paste that into here, and that would be pretty well all I needed to do in order to get this thing going. I'm not going to press OK on that because I don't particularly want to set up another connector. But once you've done that, you have the connector, and then you can make use of it within your apps and your flows.
Great, thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So, and on that front, just in the context of the presentation, we have, I haven't talked to you about expression writing and debugging and so on, but I think I would leave you that with a little bit of homework, like I have a UTC now date. How do I make it read such as 01 to March 2020, and let's just see if it can actually write us a little expression to do that. So it's just, no, it's not going to do that at all. I don't know if it'll do that actually. So this is okay. I didn't actually tell it to do it in Power Automate. So using Power Automate and submit. There you are. So that will now, and that looks like valid code to me. So you can start to do that, and then you can do something like, please comment this code. Now it will try and comment it, but the comments don't actually. Oh, it's commenting the wrong thing, and that's partly because I am using GPT 3.5. If I was using the 4, I suspect I'd actually get a better result than that, because it got a bit confused along the way. Fantastic. So in terms of the presentation, so we can jump onto Power Apps. So it looks like I've got 6 points, how to create an app. I think the most interesting thing in terms of Power Apps is probably the connector side of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little app that I built, and it is this one here, and I'm going to open it in edit mode. It is actually a very simple app. I'll show it you in, well, it should get there fairly quickly. Good. So this is the app itself. It's a very simple app. I can go to the main app area. I can go onto this and I can sort of say, well, why is the sky blue? So I'm going to say, okay, well, why is the sky blue? And there are 2 ways in which I can ask this question. Now, the first way is where I use the connector. So what'll happen is when I go onto here and click ask, what it's going to do is it is going to go to the OpenAI connector, and it's going to ask the question, and the maximum tokens. So the concept of tokens is how big a response you want to get, defines how detailed that response will be. So at the moment I'm using 100 tokens, and it's going to cost me 0.002 cents. But if I sort of said, well, let's just make it 1,000, say, I would expect a longer answer if I asked it for 1,000. So why is the sky blue? I'm going to ask the question this time round, and it's going to give me a bigger answer. Well, actually not that much bigger anyway. I say, give me a detailed answer with an introduction and conclusion. And I click ask on that. So you can see it's still running. I can see it's running at the top there. It's using the OpenAI connector, and that will cost me more. So it's introduction. Have you ever looked into a clear blue sky and wondered why it looks the way it does, the blue color of the sky, etc., etc., etc.? So we've got a more detailed answer. But if actually I sort of say, well, if I say, well, you've only got 100 to spend on this, and I click ask, then I'm going to get a less detailed answer. So 76 words, 470 characters. So much, in fact, it's not very long at all. This time round, I'm going to ask Power Automate. So this time round, I'm actually going to ask a flow to give me the response. So if you can look at this thing here, I'm going to set the flow responses to Power Apps, GPT prompt, GPT completes your prompt. So the flow that it's actually going to look at, go to training notes here and jump on there. It's actually going to run one of my, I think it's a child flow. I'm not sure if it is. I'll have to kind of go into my cloud flows. It should be pretty obvious there. It's this one here. So if we look on this thing here, we'll be able to see the recent runs and all that sort of thing. And anyone got a good question for me? Sarah, have you got a question for me maybe? Do you know what I'll do? I'll do write job spec for a Power Platform developer. So I'm going to say ask on that, and then this time I know that this default will be 300 tokens worth of a request, and so it's actually going to be a kind of okay job spec that will come in here. We can still see it's running at the top. I can just about see it, and it's going to pop through. There we are. Job title: Power Platform developer, location, remote on site, etc., etc. We're looking for. It's actually rather clever, isn't it? Sarah, I'm going to do you out of a job. What do you think,
Lots
Sarah?
of people are trying to do me out of a job. I wonder if it picks up on the kind of SEO side of things, the amount of keywords in there. I'm just trying to see how many times it repeats certain words.
Yeah, I mean, you could basically take the same thing. You know, you could take this and say, find the keywords in this text. I don't know. And I could do ask again, and then it's going to presumably give me some kind of response based on what we've seen here. You know, that's rather nice, isn't it? Isn't that good? My goodness. I think that's so clever. Now, if we actually look at this flow, if we actually look at the flow here, that is this one here, and we can actually see that we actually ran it twice. We ran it the first time round where we asked it for the I'm going to go to edit columns. Actually, this will be quite good fun. There we are. Click save, and then this says write a job spec for a Power Platform developer, and the next one said, oh my goodness, that's so amazing. Oh, that is so clever. So I can actually see my prompt that I did for this particular flow, and so you can actually see how it ran. And so what it did was it ran, I gave it a prompt, and it then responded to me. It completed the prompt, which is the same thing there. You can actually see it's actually used 600 tokens as its max tokens. So I thought it was 300, I wasn't sure. And then the response is always the same shape. It's always text index, finish reason. But the bit we're interested in is the text bit. I then take a little look at it and just check that, you know, it's going to do what I need it to do. And then finally it responds to the app or flow, because that's how it needs to work as far as the app is concerned. And there we are. That's how it works. So if I look at the text here, it's quite simply set GV flow response equals Power App, you know, blah blah blah, completes your prompt, and it then runs it, and it just pulls it out. The thing that is I quite like about the flow is that I think with the flow, I just make sure that I just literally pull out the bit I need. So if you actually look at this, it's actually slightly complex. So so if I was to go onto here and I was to do explain this Power Automate expression, and then put that in there, then it should be able to tell me what's going on here. So what is happening in there? Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? And you know what? I know this is a presentation, but I hadn't prepared this, because that's the nature of this thing. You just go off in all directions and write it as commented code. Bang that in there and we'll see how that goes. Now, interesting. It's okay. I don't think this would work. I don't think the double slash actually works on Power Automate, so you can't actually comment it correctly, but it's still cool. So that really takes us to the end of what I wanted to show. I know it was a whistle-stop tour today of what I wanted to show you. So what we've been through is we had a little welcome. We talked about myself, CPS, Robin, who put that connector together for us, the LinkedIn group. Make sure that you look in the, oh no, you haven't got it in the chat, have you?
No, I'm so sorry. It's on my
That's all
LinkedIn
right.
page. So
yeah,
and
exactly.
also, while I'm talking, I might as well just point out there is a recording of this available. So if anybody wants that, let me know. It won't be publicly available, but I can send it individually.
Okay. So how to get started using ChatGPT. We did the ChatGPT overview, using it with Power Platform. I showed you the mnemonic that we can use, and then we looked at Power BI, we looked at Power Automate, we looked at Power Apps. In fact, the only thing I didn't look at was the API usage, and I think we're out of time for this. I feel like I need to give people back their time. Anyone want to ask any questions? I feel like you guys deserve to be able to ask questions at this point. Hey, Ken.
Hiya. Sorry for the late question, but just quickly, I mean, obviously we can always circle back to this later, but is it possible for me to use ChatGPT to get, well, basically what I'm trying to do is to use Power Automate to copy a file from a folder in and then paste it into another folder on my file explorer.
Yeah.
And I just can't figure out how to do it. So I thought it was something that we could throw at ChatGPT maybe, or if there's any simpler way, you know.
I think you're probably getting into some specifics there that you know, bear in mind that you're talking about, you know, are you talking about on premise? Are you talking about in the cloud? You know, it's very different. You know, if you're talking about trying to do things on your own computer, then, you know, it may not even be the right, you know, that Power Automate may not be the right product for doing that thing. What you know, so I don't want to get into kind of consultancy type world here, but yeah, I think if you're going cloud to cloud, you're probably okay, and you can start asking those sorts of questions. But also, it works really well on expressions and things like that. Whereas if you're trying to do things, you know, someone will have done this before, and you can then leverage what they've done. In all likelihood, something as generic as, you know, moving a file from one place to another, you know, it will have been done before. But you need to start thinking about, well, do you need variables and environment variables and all that sort of thing? So, you know, development, test, and production, how is that going to work, and so on. Those are considerations that you'd also have. So yeah, I don't have a great answer for that one, I'm afraid. But I mean, you can always ask the question.
Okay, no, thanks very much. It was going to be to move from SharePoint to my on-premise, you know, file location. In any case, I'll ask the question just to see, because I did actually subscribe to ChatGPT, but I just haven't tried it yet.
Yeah.
But I will ask the question, and then I'll if you don't mind, I can also get you the feedback I get if it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think you may be surprised sometimes. You know, it's trained on so many millions and billions of documents that you know there's scope for it to come up with all sorts of things.
Thank you.
Cool. Do we have any other questions? Fabulous. Well, that really leaves us. It's really just a case of saying thank you to everyone for coming to this session. And I'm just going to call up on my screen here. Yeah, thanks to everyone for coming to the session. Please do subscribe to the course. It's a free course. You're welcome to join, and also do come and join in the Power Platform group. I can pop a little post out on that as well. So just follow me on LinkedIn, or just message me on LinkedIn if you found it useful, and so on. And I'd like to say thank you to Sarah for putting this on. They put on a lot of really cool webinars on roughly a weekly basis. And so, make sure you look out for all the great content they're putting out there.
Thanks, Rory. That was so interesting. Really enjoyed it. I felt like we've run out of time. We've gone slightly over, but I think we could have carried on. There's still a lot of people on here. I think we've got a hand raised as well. I don't know if you've got time to answer one more question.
I'm fine for time. So yeah, I can go for as long as the people are here.
There we go. More hands.
Yeah, Rory, Lakshman here. I have one question. Now we are talking about complete ChatGPT in that the public service, okay, public API, I would say. How secure this one? How compliance in the point of enterprise systems? Sorry, I think this is a little bit security topic, security question. How safe we are? Okay, sorry, if you use this ChatGPT.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. That I think if you're using it in the way that I've shown that it be used, that's probably not how we would expect corporates in the future to be using it. It's far more likely that you would be using the OpenAI because within the Microsoft platform, the OpenAI connector will exist there as well. I think they recently released it, so far more likely that you would go through that route rather than getting an API key from something that's effectively not a corporate kind of platform. So yes, I've shown you how to do things, but there will be in due course a way in which we can do it using an Azure connector. But I think that it's a real reflection of the pace of change. This is Sarah, when did you hear about ChatGPT, or was it just me?
No, I had just about heard of it before you. Yeah, it's weeks though, isn't it? Matter of weeks for me.
Yeah,
really.
But and so to get it in context, it first came out and hit the shelves, in November 2022. This has been, even the progress we've made in the short time has been lightning quick. It's been so quick, and it's really challenging, what we mean by search, and how do we summarize documents, and all these sorts of lots of things, all these examples of times when you've got a blank sheet in front of you. So to the question, you will be looking to use the Azure connector in the future, rather than the way in which I've demonstrated it, because I think that will be a more secure way for organizations to use the service.
I think there's a lot of appetite out there from sorry, just to sort of reflect on some of the people that have been on the call today. There's a lot of clients asking the consultants that we've got here today how they can use ChatGPT. So definitely stay in touch with Rory. I'm sure there's a lot more questions to come out of this.
Yeah. Any other questions? Come on, you must have another question. Or maybe there's too many questions. Well, I hope you've all enjoyed what you've seen today. Remember the decades mnemonic if you're trying to think about how you might use it. It's so cool when you create data using it. It's a lot of fun to use. I would good luck with your ChatGPT journeys. And that's the thing, is that Microsoft are all reiterating over and over again how much of it is a journey, and how we have to be patient with it all, and it probably won't deliver perfect results every time, as I've seen, but does it make me more productive? Yes, it makes me more productive, and I think that's the thing to take out from this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rory. Thank you everybody for coming as well.